Welcome to the Weird Warriors podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Rich.
And on this podcast, we will be covering the Weird War Tales comic book series published by DC Comics from 1971 to 1983. But before we get into that, I have a little retroactive history to tell you about. On one of our episodes that just came out in real time here, covering Swamp Thing number 82 and 83, I mentioned that storyline would sadly never see the light of day. The ending of that storyline would never see the light of day because DC Comics and writer Rick Veitch had a disagreement about where it was going. Namely, the fact that Swamp Thing was traveling back in time and would be meeting Jesus Christ of Nazareth at the crucifixion. The editorial got cold feet and the storyline was canceled. Rick Veitch quit. All that happened 36 years ago. But guess what? At this past weekend's New York City Comic-Con in 2025, it was announced that DC Comics will be publishing issues 88 through 91 of the Rick Veitch run of Swamp Thing. How they're doing it? Well, Rick is still alive, so that helps. They have most of the original art penciled by Michael Zulli, who has recently passed. It's going to be completed by Vince Locke. Trish Mulville is going to be coloring the issues in the old school coloring process style. The 4 issues will be published as facsimile editions, so on old school paper, recreating the old process as faithfully as possible. The first of these issues, the cover of which features Swamp Thing cradling a lamb, so you know we get right to it. We get right to Swamp Thing Jesus in the first issue of this 4-issue run. So that cover's been released. Issue 88 comes out April of 2026. So right after we just finished airing an episode talking about how this storyline is never going to be completed, DC Comics and Rick Veitch reached an agreement to do just that. So did we make that happen? I say I take credit for it. It's a miracle. So there is some retroactive history for you from an unlikely source, me.
Intel report. Yeah, we were overdue for one with this character. The Crow, Skinning the Wolves, a 3-issue mini by IDW in 2012. Script by creator James O'Barr. Art by Jim Terry. 1945 Germany. The night train to a concentration camp is being unloaded, and one of the passengers is making a return visit to avenge his family. You want to talk about a story that should take about 10 minutes to write? It doesn't get any easier. The Crow versus Nazis? Boom! Read it. Vote for it in the fan voted episode.
I gotta say, people, I have that 3-issue mini donated to me by the guy who just finished talking, and I read it, and it lives up to the promise. I have been vastly disappointed by most efforts using the Crow intellectual property other than the first movie and the first original comic book series. This one, I mean, given it's James O'Barr writing it, but that's no guarantee. But it really does live up to it. I highly recommend this one. So, you know, not to put my finger on the scale of voting too hard, but me likey.
Oh, we can't have an episode that Max likes. We hit that.
With the retroactive history and the intel report out of the way, I should mention that we're taking a look at Weird War Tales number 73 this time around. And as is SOP here on the show, Rich is going to hit you with that cover detail.
Yeah, Max got all excited about Swamp Thing. Jesus! Cover detail art by George Evans. 40 cents. Weird War Tales is red on a green background. In this issue, a bonus-length blockbuster. A skeleton wearing dark blue Greek centurion armor attacks a human wearing red and yellow armor. Both have swords. The skeleton's shield strikes the human in the neck, causing him to fall back and drop his shield in pain. And the dirt at their feet reads, "The Curse." Cover date, March 1979. Date of release, December 12th, 1978. Old Comics Man. Seen on eBay for anywhere between $4 and $27. No Killjoy, because I don't know anything about Greek armor. CNC. George Evans is one of those names I only started appreciating only after we started doing the show. And one regret is never having met him before he died in 2001. Aircraft was the thing he was most famous for art-wise, but the man was obviously talented in other fields. Look at the body language here. Our boy has been knocked clear off his feet by the force of death's blow, and it kind of looks like the edge of the shield has caught our boy in the neck. Is that blood? If it is, this fight's over. It's probably over anyway. Solid start.
Okay, so the figures are well rendered. Again, George Evans is an accomplished artist, no matter what the subject matter. And the outfits and weapons are nicely detailed. But what we have here are two overlarge figures with a great big cloud of dirt or a rising loaf of bread serving as the so-called background. Despite the fatal struggle being depicted, I think it's kind of a boring cover, and it must have taken Evans all of 5 minutes to bang out. So let's hope the inside's a little better.
The Curse of Zopyrus. 22 pages. Script by Last Timer, Steve Englehart. Art by First Timer, Ernie Patricio. As the bloody battle rages on all sides, two men remain intent upon only one another. Two fierce chiefs are finally face to face. The Spartan Aristides sits astride his horse, wielding a spear at the downed Athenian Zopyrus. "At last we meet, Zopyrus. Your gods cannot save you now. Go to your hell! Though you may spear my body, Aristides, though your Spartans may spear all the men of Athens, still shall I have my revenge. I shall go beyond, but then I shall return to take possession and bring shame and death to all your family. Know that Athens holds the talisman of Hades. Know that it shall be so." The words of the fallen Athenian are grim and terrible, but they are only words. The deeds this day speak solely of Spartan triumphs, and the warriors of this Grecian city-state are on their way to world mastery in the year 422. Hail Nike, goddess of victory! Hail Ares, god of war! Hail Aristides, leader of men! Aye, the Spartans know the power of gods. Soon they shall know more. That night, Nicias pleads with his father to go to the Flagons and tell all how he overcame the Athenian commander. But Aristides refuses. A commander is nothing without his generals. Ha! The Athenian pig thought he could frighten Spartans with his preposterous curse. As if demons could succeed where their men could not against our family. In the following days, Aristides and his sons passed their time preparing for the next battle. Diomedes, the wrestler with no equal. Nicias, whose javelin arm must have come from Hercules himself. And Damon, whose accuracy with a sling was by far the truest. Damon would reach warrior age next year and will no doubt acquit himself well in battle. But strategy and strength are not equally important. A general must also have a clever mind. That night, the celebration of Dionysus is held, and the celebrants honor the god of wine until dawn. Aristides mounts his trusty steed Hermes for the ride home. The roads weave treacherously, but Aristides races towards their welcoming bed. Hermes trips, and Aristides goes flying off the steed. Hours later, Aristides is discovered with a broken neck. He is dead. Was it just a drunken fall, or did the curse of Zopyrus come back to possess his enemy and pull him up from his horse? All Sparta feels the loss of its mightiest warrior, and the city speaks of the curse. Could it be true? "Don't think of it," Nicias exclaims. "No Athenian curse could have the strength to kill our father. It was a terrible accident." Diomedes is eldest. It falls to him to prove himself as fine a warrior as his father. The war with Corinth begins soon. Aristides' armor and weapons are shared amongst the two eldest sons to carry his honor into battle. Before dawn the following morn, the Spartans assemble just inside the woods overlooking a Corinthian encampment. The attack is scheduled to begin in an hour when all his men are in position, but Diomedes is impatient. He spurs Hermes forward and orders the horsemen to attack, to Hades with strategy. But because of the early attack, the Spartans themselves are caught off guard by Corinthian reinforcements. Diomedes is slain, and a small grim band of surviving Spartans manages to escape. They cannot believe their misfortune. Diomedes, son of Aristides, had doomed them to defeat. It had to be the curse. The demon took hold of his soul. Nicias gives the grim news to Damon. The battle was lost. Diomedes was our ruin. We have been shamed forever. He broke our lines in a mad charge, alerted the Corinthians. The curse? Don't say that. There is no curse. It was the act of a fool and a hothead, nothing more. But I have heard the others. They, too, wonder. On my father's grave, I vow to regain the honor our family has lost this black day. I am the man of the family now, and I shall do what must be done. But already news of the crippled Spartan forces has spread to Athens, and taking advantage of their stricken foe's weakness, Athenian raiding parties demolish outlying farms and settlements. Demetrius orders Nicias to summon the Western Alliance. Their combined forces will crush the Athenian vermin. Watching Nicias gallop off, Demetrius remembers the defeat Diomedes had inflicted upon Sparta and wonders about Nicias and the curse. But Aristides had been his friend. Demetrius and Nicias would ride together into battle. The next day, the Athenian and Spartan forces clash. The air is filled with the swift hiss of arrows and the screams of staggering men. The old general and youthful compatriot are a dynamic fighting team, and the Athenians are driven back. But Demetrius falls, wounded. An Athenian raises his sword for the killing blow, and the general cries for Nicias' aid. But Nicias gallops off on Hermes, and the general is slain. The Spartans are outraged by the cowardice of Nicias and the curse that stained that family. Nicias is dragged from his horse by incensed Spartans and butchered. Sundown at the Spartan gates. The townspeople gather quickly to hear the news of another Spartan defeat. Sparta's warriors have been renowned for centuries. What was happening? The curse. Nicias had been fighting like a true Spartan when all of a sudden his belly turned yellow and he fled like a chicken before the hawk. There could be no other explanation. Aristides, Diomedes, Nicias. The angry townspeople now turn towards young Damon.
You are the last son of a cursed family. You must die too. Damon utters the same line that had been heard before about doubting the existence of a curse, but the townspeople will not listen. The Athenian will invade your body and bring more defeat to Sparta unless we rid ourselves of his chosen vessel. Damon draws his sword to defend himself against the crowd, but the outcome is not in doubt. Suddenly, an old, wizened man steps between the two sides. Wait! There is still a use for this young man. It is said that Zopyrus called upon the talisman of Hades to aid him in his vengeance. This talisman has legendary powers, though most have been long forgotten. The Athenians have this talisman in their possession, and much of their confidence in battle is drawn from it, for it promises that their enemies shall soon inhabit the underworld. The talisman of Hades is well protected in a cave north of Athens. If you, Damon, can capture the charm for Sparta, you can defeat the curse and return honor to your family. Damon immediately accepts the challenge. The old man continues. First, strike down the ferocious black lion who guards the mountain pass to the cave. Second, you must defeat 2 godless giants who live at the cave's entrance. Lastly, slay the double-headed fire dragon who ensnares the talisman with its jagged tail and waits at the back of the cave. This is most difficult, for both heads must be destroyed simultaneously. Can you do this, Damon? I have said so. I shall succeed on the souls of my father and brothers. The crowd assents silently. If the boy takes the talisman, Sparta will be safe. If he dies in the attempt, Sparta will still be safe. A proper bargain. Damon mounts Hermes and rides proudly from Sparta's gates as the sun sets. He rides swiftly and quietly all night, approaching the mountain of Actos at dawn. Remembering the old man's map, Damon recognizes the cave's entrance marked by two olive trees with intertwined branches. Approaching the cave, he's attacked by a black lion. Damon leaps off his horse's back and onto the lion. For several seconds, he grapples with the mighty beast before remembering his dagger and striking the lion dead. Remounting Hermes, he continues down the path. Smelling meat cooking, he slows and sees two giants arguing. "Get up, you lazy she-toad! The boar is almost done. Fetch some rabbits for the stew." "Relax, Wart! I'll go when I'm ready." Damon resorts to using the strategy his father had told him of and prepares a trap at the cliff's edge. Returning to the giant's fire, Damon uses his sling to strike one of the giants in the head with a stone. Enraged, it turns and strikes its compatriot in the head with its club. "Think you can get away with that, scum? Take this!" The two giants batter each other with their clubs until one is killed by a blow. Seeing Damon, the surviving giant charges after him, swiftly gaining. But Damon dodges to the side at the last second. The behemoth stumbles on a hidden tripwire and falls screaming over the cliff. Damon had won 2 of the 3 trials, but now faced the worst of them all. Entering the cave, it was not long before the darkness was lit by the fiery blast of 2 dragon heads. Flames burn his flesh, but the Spartan boy closes his mind to the pain and attacks, slicing off one of the dragon's heads with a sword strike. He is shocked to see the severed head immediately grow back. The old man said both heads must be destroyed at once, but that is truly impossible. Unless, frantically dodging the flames, Damon fits a pointed rock in his sling. Just as he releases the deadly missile, he hurls another, his own dagger. Both strike a dragon's head, stunning it. Before it can recover, Damon rushes in with his sword and decapitates both heads. "Father always said my aim would make him proud." Unable to speak further through the lump in his throat, Damon retrieves the idol that will save his family's name. Outside, a bloodied and blistered hero prepares for the long ride back to Sparta. "Hermes, take me home. We have won. I am exhausted, but when I ride in with this talisman..." "What? No! No!" The ghost of Zopyrus separates from Hermes, bucking over the body of Damon. "I am avenged," he celebrates.
Another mighty warrior once cried, "A horse, my kingdom for a horse." But then he never knew Hermes. Zopyrus said he'd take possession. He just didn't say of what. And it's just those little distinctions that separate the real war from the weird war. Killjoy, page 2. Goddess Nike is misspelled. Nice. And a flagon is a fancy old word for a pitcher, which is what all the best booze comes in. Max, you got the history minute this time, don't you?
Yeah, it's kind of a history minute-ish. The only Aristides I could find was Aristides the Just. Now, it's spelled a little differently. It's Tides in actual history. And this person was Athenian, not Spartan, and is most well known for writing the Apology of Aristides, in which he requests that the emperor stop persecuting the Christians and convert to their faith. And we all know how that turned out. The name Zopyrus does have a connection to Athens, or rather, 3 of them do. But none of them bearing the name bear much similarity to the character in our story. The first one up is Zopyrus the Persian nobleman. His connection to Athens is that after the death of his father, Megabyzus I love that, Megabyzus, cool name, Zopyrus fled to Athens for refuge, reportedly due to the services his mother, Amytis, had rendered the Athenians. So called in a favor, hid her son in Athens. This Zopyrus's actions, he later assisted the Athenians in an expedition against the city of Caunus or Caunus, Caunus. Second up, we have Zopyrus the physiognomist. The connection to Athens here is that this Zopyrus was a Syrian physiognomist who famously predicted that Socrates was naturally inclined to the vices of gluttony, lust, and other negative traits. Socrates himself confirmed Zopyrus's assessment, stating that he had indeed been naturally inclined to those vices, but had overcome them through the power of reason. Sure, you did, Socrates. All right, our third and final Zopyrus here is Zopyrus the physician. So we go from physiognomist to a more common word, the physician. Now, this one, his connection to Athens was that although not from Athens, this Zopyrus was a prominent surgeon from Alexandria in the first century BCE. His actions include the fact that he tutored important medical figures and is known for inventing an antidote, which he famously offered to test on a criminal for King Mithridates VI. So, we have some historical precedents for both of the names featured prominently in this story, but none of them have anything to do with the characters in the story or the roles that they played. So I had to try to dig up something for the history minute here. And, I learned a little something along the way. And isn't that what's important? No, Max. What's important is getting to the comments and commendations. I suppose I'll kick that off too. Now, as far as this full-length battle tale is concerned, I'll say I have much the same opinion of the art in this story as I do about the work displayed on the cover. It's competent, even quite good, taken in a vacuum, but it all feels a bit stiff and dull, even in the moments that should be dramatic or exciting. Just check out the oddly bloodless sword strike to the throat on page 7, panel 1. More examples include the off-panel death of the general on page 11, panel 2, and the killing of the lion on page 17, panel 3. I know this is a Comics Code approved book, but there are ways of getting these things across to the reader with at least some sense of impact or menace. I mean, we've seen that several times in this very series. Even the dragon on page 20, panel 4, seems to be reacting more like it just slipped on a bar of soap than having been recently beheaded. Granted, the far more gruesome follow-up on the very next page gets much more down into the gruesome nitty-gritty. And maybe this is more allowable since the dragon is a more fantastical enemy than a human being or a lion. That may be, but it still doesn't excuse the previous deaths from being so dishwater dull. Now, before I get too down on the artwork here, let me be clear that this artist is obviously talented and skilled. The drawings themselves are well done. The layouts and panel designs are varied enough, and the storytelling is generally quite clear, except for the censored to the point of confusion death scenes in places. It's just all quite lifeless in execution. The figures in action feel overly posed in a weird way, as though the artist was trying to evoke the static images you'd find on a Grecian urn. Yes, all comic book art is made up of static images, but the art of the comic book is to make those images come alive. See everything Jack Kirby ever drew. This artist largely fails at that task, in my opinion, but you can see the talent on display here too, as in page 15, panel 3, in the mosaic-like illustration of the old man telling Damon of the challenges that will face him on his quest for the Talisman of Hades. Likewise, with the writing, Steve Englehart is a favorite of mine, but this story is overly repetitive and sluggishly paced. Lately, I've felt that some of the stories in WWT have needed a few more pages to be told properly, but this one needed less. If this was a 10-pager, I think Englehart would have given us a banger. But hey, the final page is really cool. And we actually get a helmeted host to close things out. So maybe the real lesson here is don't name your horse after one of the gods. They don't like that. And if you name it after the god of messengers, don't be surprised if it delivers a message you don't like.
One of the gripes I had was the fact that Hermes wasn't always identified as the horse various members of the family were riding on when a tragedy befell them, like Nicaeus. I connected the dots in this script. If Englehart had done that, I might have figured it out before the big reveal at the end. Splash page is solid, but then you turn the page right to the after party. We don't even get to see Aristides turn Zopyrus into a shish kebab. Kind of integral to the story, isn't it? And the whole point of the curse of Hermes being the reason all this misfortune befell the family is lost when an impatient Diomedes charges the Corinthians by himself. Hermes didn't do that, page 6, panel 1. There are some solid battle scenes throughout, like the first 2 panels on page 10. I like the whole quest slant the story took in the back half, and I would be remiss if I didn't drop a Damon and Goliath joke when he uses his sling on the giant. And the final page gives me a chance to bring Rod back, whom we haven't heard from in a while. I really don't have much else to add other than what Max said, which probably makes this my shortest CNC for a full-length battle tale ever. Next up, the APO Weird War Tales. And I'm going to start off with a missive from Mr. Mike Bates from 3414 Lexington, Pontiac, Michigan 48054. Dear Paul, Weird War number 68 was a truly entertaining issue. Whoever thought up the theme of an all-monster issue is to be congratulated. The quality of the book didn't degenerate into childish nonsense, as I feared. Instead, we were treated to a very unique aspect of the Weird War. The best tale, as Max would agree, of the issue was Rotira. Bob Rozakis really amazes me. Sometimes he'll write some forgettable trash. Other times he'll give us a first-rate story. I was wondering how he was going to handle this destroy the monster angle. The suicide mission idea was a great stroke. Rather than have tedious confrontations between monster and man, as is seen in another Green Monster book. Gee, I wonder which one he's talking about. Zaka centered on the mystery angle being prepared to kill Rotira. This ending caught me completely off guard. The reference to FDR helped to bring in that realistic touch to balance off the somewhat unbelievable doings. It was great seeing Jerry Teleak. Please don't lose this man. He's great. Unfortunately, Life and Death of Charlie Gollum couldn't match the opener. Bob Toomey couldn't seem to make up his mind whether he was writing a humorous tale or a dramatic one. Besides, the monster was not as believable. I was hoping for a twist ending. I felt for sure that Toomsey was going to play up the prejudice angle. All we got was a pointless ending, devoid of any moralistic message or humor. At least Rubini saved the day with a great art job. The greatest story never told was super, indeed. The point of Hemingway being witness to this battle was completely unexpected. Again, it provided us with a touch of reality to counterbalance the weirdness. Maybe you should try that approach more often. The day after Doomsday Shorties are always welcome. Even though I knew from the first couple of panels that it was a non-human being talked about, the tale still gave us a lesson to think about. By the way, I'm glad I saw that second page panel. When do the collected works of Carrie Burkett go on sale? Let me know so I can start saving my dollars today. And Paul responds with, Carrie's collected efforts probably won't see print for a while, which is a mixed blessing. You'll be denied the volume, of course, but on the other hand, you can rest easy in knowing that the day after Doomsday can't happen. Really? The day after Doomsday can't happen? Here in 2025, we still worry about it. On a more serious note, Bob came up with the idea for Rotira, and when the story came in, it was such a natural cover story, we built a monstrous issue out of inventory. I thought you didn't have any inventory. Anyway, yeah, so that's it. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about much to disagree about Mike's story. I mean, if you remember, I think I picked the greatest story never told as my favorite, and Max loves Rotira. So yeah, that was a pretty solid issue all the way around. I do recall.
Yeah, I feel like that letter writer's opinions kind of paralleled our own. You know, like Charlie had great art, but the story was eh. And then both the other ones were great. It's just a matter of which one you're going to land on. And I admit mine was a purely nostalgia fueled pick because that was my first issue of WWT ever, and it was the cover that grabbed my interest. So yeah, so that's nice to see that some people had the exact same take as us. Now my letter, it's kind of a long one, and it starts off like many do. Dear Paul, those of us with long memories have mixed feelings about the war that time forgot. Generally, when you have had Joe Kubert doing these men versus dinosaur strips, as on the cover of Weird War Tales number 68, the result is absolutely beautiful. When other artists try to do this sort of thing, as in Teleox Rotira, the product is inconsistent and sometimes unsatisfying. Jerry's art on the main body of the story was extremely nice. It was good to see him do his own layouts for once, yet his work on Rotira owed too much to Herb Trimpe's Godzilla. Now, come on, we all owe so much to Herb Trimpe's Godzilla. You can't blame him for that. Bob Rozakis' script was appealing. Bob has the knack of taking slightly corny ideas and making them seem believable by presenting them with a straight face. Still, Rotira should have been a book lengther. It was just getting off to a good start when the whole story blew up. The Life and Death of Charlie Gollum was an enjoyable and whimsical bit of writing, which, like the first story, could have been a bit longer. It was going along fine until the Golem attacked the sergeant for no apparent reason. My take two on that. Private Levy tripped with the scroll for no apparent reason, and the story ended, well, you know the rest. Rubini has, in a way, redeemed himself in my eyes. I thought his cartoonish style was a thing of the past, but it was very much in evidence here and very suited to this light-hearted story. I have two minor criticisms. The changing of the word on the golem's forehead to a scroll seemed too contrived as an ending, and the vest and amulet made the golem look too much like a flower child. Oh man, I think Marvel's Frankenstein also has like a vest and an amulet thing going on too, and that might have been published around this time, but I guess this letter writer did not see that. The Greatest Story Never Told sparked off a whole bushel of mixed reactions in me. The introduction of the supernatural element seemed entirely incongruous, yet predictable, as if it was shoehorned in to fit this comic's format. I thought the reporter's destruction of his notes was the surprise ending of the story until I got to his name, and that was a surprise. I especially like double twist endings, but of course, I had to go back and see if it was written in a Hemingway style. And it really wasn't. Okay. Frank Miller's art wasn't nearly so good here as it was in the next mini story. Short though it may have been, The Day After Doomsday was the best feature in the book. Surprising choice. Featuring what is probably Miller's best pencils so far. It was frighteningly effective in capturing the desolation and ruin of NYC post-war. The script, besides having a moderately surprising ending, was all too believable, considering the durability of the cockroach, which is mythological, by the way. Very well emphasized with the use of racial memories and the reference to the dinosaur. Bob Downes's inks were clear and precise and showed a great resemblance to Giordano. That's a compliment. Good effort all around. It's occurred to me that Weird War is open to all sorts of interpretation. You could even try a World War II story without any use of the supernatural or fantastic at all. They have a ton of those at DC Comics, Something that could have or did happen in real life. At any rate, I hope you'll do men versus dinosaurs once in a while. And science fiction about 1/3 of the time. You're getting a little specific here, Mr. Letter Writer. You might want to do a Weird War hero sometime, like an unknown soldier story involving the supernatural, or a revival of the gay/grim ghost, or the ghost of the Ghost Patrol. Actually, I didn't like either of those stories. They're just examples. Well, thanks. And that comes from actual real person confirmed by Paul Kupperberg, Beppe Sabatini, of 129 Gunson Street, Apartment 7, East Lansing, Michigan 48823. And the response to that long letter goes a little something like this. We have every hope of continuing to surprise our readers and expanding the horizons of Weird War. Pepe, as you can see by this issue's 22-page special story that doesn't feature any of the traditional WWT hallmarks until the very end. And although we think it's unlikely that there'll ever be a heroic series in these pages, wait for it, there is a story of a new sort of ghost patrol coming up in an issue or two. So there you go. That is Beppe chiming in on this issue. So, people, that's the APO Weird War Tales letters page section. You know what time it is now on the show? We pivot over to our spotlighted ads for this issue. And this time around, I am going to talk about the Hostess ad in the issue. And that Hostess Cupcakes ad is entitled Wonder Woman versus the Cheetah. You have Wonder Woman grappling with a Black Panther in the first panel, trying to lasso it and grabbing it by the neck and wrestling with it. So we get off to a pretty good start. And Wonder Woman says, "By Hera, the cheetah's pet is certainly no pussycat, but then neither is the cheetah." She lassos the panther up, says, "Now, you overgrown pussycat, take me to your boss, the lady with the criminal mind." And in it, what I think is a really cool panel of Wonder Woman casually walking the now subdued panther towards the cheetah's big pink mansion. Says, "So, this is what the cheetah calls home. She's not gonna invite me in, so..." Next panel is Wonder Woman putting a picnic basket in the panther's mouth and saying, "Okay now, pussycat, you take this little present to your mistress." Next panel, we have Cheetah, who, unlike other portrayals of her, is just a blonde woman in like kind of a really elegant house coat or robe and knee-high boots, chilling in a chair surrounded by two cheetahs and now her faithful panther that has brought her a picnic basket. And she's saying, what a smart puss to bring me these delicious Hostess cupcakes." And Cheetah in the next panel is too busy enjoying her cupcakes to notice Wonder Woman coming in and punching the panther who, so nicely brought the picnic basket in for her right in the face and saying, "While the cheetah enjoys her Hostess cupcakes, I'll take care of her little pets." And one of the cheetahs is already knocked out. Both of the cheetahs are already knocked unconscious in the background. So at least she saved the panther for last, right? Last panel, we have Wonder Woman tying up the cheetah, saying, "Hope you enjoyed your Hostess cupcakes, Cheetah." Being tied up in the lasso of truth, Cheetah says, "I must tell the truth, Wonder Woman. They were delicious." And we end with the usual tagline of, "You get a big delight in every bite of Hostess cupcakes." Now, as I kind of mentioned, what I dug about that ad was its unusual take on the cheetah, who is usually more of a physical opponent for Wonder Woman. Here, she seems more like a very old school take on Catwoman. And I gotta say, I kind of like this take better. I've never really bought it that this, woman who kind of has cat powers would be much of a struggle for Wonder Woman. I sort of like Cheetah as a Catwoman stand-in. I don't know. I've never seen this take before, and I like it. Also, as I mentioned, not cool Wonder Woman punching that panther in the face after it so nicely carried that basket of cupcakes for you. So that's the Hostess ad. I had a little bonus ad comment that I had to pick here. I couldn't just pass it by. As is common in this era of DC Comics, there's an ad for Superman the movie. I think it's on the inside front cover of this issue, and it just says Superman the movie coming for Christmas. Seems a little menacing to me. Like, Superman is coming for Christmas? What'd Christmas ever do to him? Is this the start of the war on Christmas? Alien menace indeed.
For only the second time in show history, Max got to his script before I did. So here I am trying to find a decent ad. I'm going to do a first ever one shot only on the advertiser direct ads. All the way back in Weird War Tales 6, my spotlighted ad was for an inflatable Raquel Welch pillow with all the innuendo attached to that. Now, a similar ad for the girls. Velvet Touch life-size dolls. Elvis, Travolta, Sean, and Donnie. Only $9.95. Allows 6 to 8 weeks for delivery. No personal checks or CODs. Regency, Pinnacle NC 27043. It has flanking headshots of Sean Cassidy and John Travolta. Now, I don't need Velvet Touch life-size dolls in my search history, but I'm having waking nightmares contemplating what these things must have looked like. At least there was a crappy picture of the Raquel doll in the ad. Just this. No. Just no.
And two things I gotta say: the Raquel Welch call out was one of my favorites that you've ever picked. I laughed my ass off just with you reading that ad back in the day, and for you picking I missed this ad completely. I mean, I went to the Hostess ad as an act of desperation, and thankfully it was like kind of a different one from the ones we normally see. But like this, dude. This is the ad of the issue right here. I will put this in my search history and try to find some images. I don't care, man. You think this is the worst thing in my history? search history, it is not. So, I'll seek this out and see if I can find some pics today before my in-laws get here. So yeah, you can carry us on into the last words section of the show, sir.
Such as they are. This one had its moments, but at the end of the day, I gotta toss it aside for all the reasons Max has already or is about to say. Not a great farewell for Mr. Englehart. Shortest last words ever. Max.
So yeah, as I said in my CNC, this story overstayed its welcome, and the art failed to distract from the bloated nature of the page count. I could have done with a one less sun or two, and this the point would have gotten across, you know? Oddly enough, if the writing and art were a bit worse, it might have been more entertaining. But the real way to salvage this one would have been to reduce its page count and increase the focus. Beppe might be right. Maybe we do need a hero. Better luck next time. So there we go, folks. That is the full-length battle tale for Weird War Tales 73. We're all done, except for the part of the show we like to call the scuttlebutt, where I remind you we have an awesome Facebook page, the Weird Warriors Podcast Facebook page, which is run by my esteemed co-host Rich and is a great time to hang out at. It's a great place to hang out at, too. And we also have a redbubble.com merch store. If one of you out there wants to order our awesome logo that was drawn and designed by Bill Walko of theherobusiness.com and Archie Comics fame, you can get that logo on any piece of merch they sell at redbubble.com. And if you get a picture of that merch after it's sent to you and send it to us via Facebook Messenger to the Facebook page, Rich will send you a Sam Star, which is an awesome thing to have. We also have a YouTube page that I've been dragging my feet on, but there's like 60 videos up there, and most of them have like one view, and that view is me. So you're not really inspiring me to hit the grind on the YouTube page, people, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put some more up this weekend, I promise. I also promised last weekend and didn't do it. Anyway, we have a YouTube page. It's called the Weird Warriors Podcast YouTube page. Go check it out. Get those view counts up and make me do the work. All right. And Rich has even more scuttlebutt for you right now.
Scuttlebutt, aka free plug. As long as you're in Troy, New York, visiting Aquilonia Comics, go to Cromulent Comics too, 362 Congress Street, just down the road a couple miles. They just opened this year. Fun little comic shop with a lot of toys and cool genre-related stuff. They also have a channel on YouTube, Cromulent Comics Cromcast. Go check that out if you can't get to Troy. And I don't expect 99% of our listeners to be able to do that. So www.cromulentcomics.com. So free plug out of the way. Go moving on to the teaser for our next episode. Weird War Tales number 74. Oh my God, another Weird War Tales, 2 in a row. That's been a while. The War That Time Forgot. Jungle Journalist Jerk. And a sad farewell to a show favorite. Be here next time. And remember, Santa's watching.
Always watching. Yeah, sounds good to me. I'd like to rebound off this issue into a slightly more enjoyable issue. So I can't wait. I may even start reading it this weekend. Again, promises made. We'll see. Hey, a jungle journalist jerk sounds like my kind of character. It's all I'm going to say. It could be an issue where I show up in Weird War Tales. Who knows? And who am I? Well, I'm one of the Weird Warriors. I'm one of the Batlin Bros. And what is this? This is the Weird Warriors podcast, people. And that is a podcast on which Rich and I promise to make war
No more.